What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. It's Tuesday, day the ALDS and NLDS began. We had a fun weekend of wildcard baseball. Pretty much every series had at least like one kind of crazy game for different reasons. Before we get into those series, Korea, how are you doing?
I'm over the moon. The Mariners are in the ALDS for the first time in a very, very long time. Postseason baseball's back, and I feel like this, little three-game wild card we just had this weekend is pretty evident of that. You mentioned it. The Mariners comeback, or the 15-inning game with the Guardians and the Rays, or whether it's Philly, blowing that big lead, or the Mets, somehow going from leading the division to being out of the playoffs already. That's just the craziness of baseball. But you know what? We got to move on, and we're in the next round, and it's kind of crazy. We're down to 8 teams already.
Yep, so we'll get right into this first series that kicks off in less than an hour. Phillies and Braves. Phillies dominated the Cardinals for the most part. I would say they got dominant performances from Zach Wheeler and Austin Nola. It's kind of ironic because the Phillies basically ended the runs of Viotti and Wainwright and Pujols, and then I think it was 2011, the Cardinals ended the runs of guys like Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, guys like that back in the day. So these two teams go way back, obviously in terms of rivalry and playing in the playoffs and all of that. But the Phillies got the best of them here. I think the biggest takeaway for me was the struggles of Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, neither of whom were able to pick up a big hit, and they had chances. I believe it was the ninth inning in Game 2 where Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina both ended their career with a hit, but they just couldn't get driven in. With the late comeback that the Cardinals trying to have. Curry, what was your takeaway from that series this past weekend, and then what we have coming up in what's one of 3 divisional matchups in the divisional round?
Yeah, when you look back at that opening series between the Phillies and Cardinals, it really just shows you that the Cardinals just did not show up when it really mattered. The Cardinals had multiple opportunities to score, and then you mentioned of Game 1, I mentioned earlier, they had a 2-0 lead in the top of the ninth, just a couple outs, literally 1 out away from clinching Game 1, and they blow that lead, and then all of a sudden it's 6-2 heading into the bottom of the ninth. So you mentioned the Cardinals had multiple chances to pretty much either end the series or potentially force a Game 3. And I feel like the Phillies' luck is kind of come run out when they're playing one of the best all-around teams in baseball in Atlanta. Atlanta, you look at the starting rotation, right? You have Spencer Strider, who's an all-star and a Rookie of the Year candidate in the National League. You have Max Fried, Charlie Morton. Offensively, they have Michael Harris, who Mariner fans know well aware of, Robbie Grossman, Acuna, of course, Matt Olson, the Freddie Freeman replacement. I feel like this Braves team is just too talented all around the board, and I feel like this Phillies team in the first round just kind of got lucky. You can call it luck, but literally, they were only 1 out away from losing that Game 1. And who knows what could have happened? Maybe the Cardinals gain that momentum. Take it in 2. But I feel like this series is going to be a little more competitive. When you look at the Phillies, though, right? Definitely coming off of a lucky series, in my opinion, against the Cardinals, where you mentioned Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt, 2 MVP candidates for the National League, just did not show up when it mattered. And then you mentioned Pujols and Molina, kind of being the key guys in that last game in the last part of the bottom of the ninth, to get some clutch hits. But fortunately, their careers ended on that sad note for Cardinal fans as well. So you look at this series, right? Obviously, these two teams have played each other many times. It's a divisional matchup, as you just mentioned. I feel like the Braves definitely have a little bit of an edge here just because of the fact that this Braves team is really, really deep all around. And the pitching rotation is one of the best in baseball, and it can compete with any team. This one, I have the Braves winning in 4. I just feel like this Braves team is really, really talented. It starts off to this, as you mentioned, in less than an hour. I feel like this Braves team is known for this. They're the defending champions for a reason, and they're the number 2 seed in the National League. And the Phillies, yes, they're a great story. Beating Cardinals in round 1. Off of some not luck, but just some postseason magic in the top of the ninth, and then Aaron Nola coming in. But I just don't know how that pitching staff really competes with how deep how deep that one in Atlanta really is. I mean, you already have Aaron Nola gone, and then you already have Zach Wheeler gone, and I feel like those are your two kind of guys in terms of the rotation. And I heard they just lost Robertson, who didn't make the roster because of an injury. I mean, obviously he was celebrating someone, but still, like an injury that is going to keep him out of the postseason now until hopefully, unless they don't make it past the ALCS. So I feel like this Phillies team just exhausted themselves in the first round to try and make it to the second round. And I feel like the magical ride stops for them in the second round. I have the Braves winning in 4. I just feel like this Braves team is all around just better, and they already know this team, and they know how to beat them and how to play against them.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously the Braves are a pretty big favorite. They are going to get Wheeler Nola in game 2 and 3, so they're still going to have a chance to make their impact. Obviously the Braves are going to be a huge favorite in this game between Ranger Suarez and Max Fried, but then we got Zach Wheeler and Kyle Wright slated for tomorrow in game 2. So, I think if the Phillies can split, in Atlanta, then they have, then they're putting themselves in a decent shot, because I would assume Nola goes in game 3 at home. But yeah, they're definitely going to have to take one in Atlanta to even have a chance. But I agree with you that Atlanta in 4 sounds right. maybe they win Nola start, maybe they push it to 5 games back to Atlanta. But, Atlanta's definitely hard. It's hard to pick against them with how deep they are, both in the lineup and the rotation. Now we'll get into our favorite series here, starting up this afternoon between the Mariners and Astros. Mariners, game 1, what a dominant performance by Luis Castillo. That's what they traded for. That's what they gave up the prospects for, and it clearly paid off, to this point. And then game 2, arguably one of the craziest games, not only in postseason history, but, sports history, arguably in the playoffs. Coming back down 8-1 after 5 innings. Blue Jays manager taking a lot of heat for taking Gossman out when he did, to then give up, all after he got the 2 outs with the bases loaded. Korea, when did you think that the Mariners had a chance to come back? Was it after the Santana home run?
Yeah, I feel like after that Santana home run, I felt like, okay, it's only a 3-run game and it's only in the 5th or 6th inning. So, it definitely wasn't over, but, definitely down 8-1 in a game 2 where, you weren't really expected to win. Obviously, Robbie Reyes struggled on the road all season, and that was pretty much evident on Saturday. But, coming into that game, after the game 1, the Mariners had hope. I mean, obviously, the hope was to end it in 2 so we don't have to use Gilbert in a game 3 situation, and, just more exhaustion for the players and all of the bullpen and all that stuff. I feel like that comeback kind of just brought a lot of momentum. Obviously, it started with a pass ball, and then a 3-run homer from Santana, and then down to 8-5. Like, okay, well, we'll just see what happens in the later innings, and then here comes the 8th inning, bases loaded for J.P. Crawford, and he hits a blooper in the center field. Obviously, scary collision in center field with Bichette and Springer. Hopefully, both of them are okay, but still cleared the bases, and now we're all tied again. And it just kind of shows that this Mariners team, like Scott Service always says, they don't give up. They play until the final pitch, the final out, the final strike, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like that momentum's carrying into this. Now, yes, obviously it's the Astros. The Astros have a 7-12 record against us this year, obviously divisional matchup. Obviously, Justin Verlander on the mound. AL Cy Young. Let's just give it to him at this point, honestly. He's doing things at 30-something that most pitchers can't do at 20. It's ridiculous how well he has thrown this year, especially against the Mariners. I think he has like a 5-1 record with a little bit of over 2 ERA. But I feel like in this series, I feel like this Mariners team is just different from the Mariners team they faced back in July, because obviously the last time these two teams played was the end of July, right before the trade deadline, where the Mariners got Luis Castillo, because the Mariners were just beat down by the Astros. And literally, I think they were facing the Astros when that trade happened. So that just shows you that, that Mariners team back then is different from the Mariners team that we've seen today. Obviously, yeah, you mentioned John Snyder, Toronto Blue Jays interim head coach, interim manager right now, definitely getting a lot of heat, taking Gausman out early. But, I feel like it's kind of like the Kevin Cash situation, like with Blake Snell, that could go either way, but you never know what could have happened on that next pitch. But Kevin Gausman was dealing all day. But today, obviously, Mariners play the Astros in about a couple hours here. I definitely feel like this game is going to be, pretty one-sided. I feel like, Astros, have a lot of rest right now. They've been coasting since about early September when they pretty much won the division, and they may have. I don't think they've taken the gas off the the pedal off the metal. You know what I'm saying? I feel like this Astros team is definitely going to play with their hearts out, but so are the Mariners. The Mariners have. I feel like this Mariners team has nothing to lose right now. They've already proved so much. They proved all the doubters wrong. People had them out in the first round, and I think 2 games, and the Mariners won both of those games. So, I feel like the Mariners just are playing with nothing to lose. And, I feel like a team that has nothing to lose is the most dangerous team to face right now, especially with how well this team is just gelled and how Scott Service always says that this team is like a family. I have either the Astros winning in 4 just because, the Astros are just that good, or miracles can happen. I have the Mariners potentially winning in 5, either one. I don't think a sweep is going to come either way. These two teams know each other well, and plus they haven't played each other since late July, so that's a long time. And here we are, October 11th, the first time these two teams are meeting since the end of July. So I feel like these two teams know each other, but then again, the early half of the season is different from the back half, and the Mariners' second half, it's definitely been a rise, beating the Yankees at home, and beating the Yankees in the Bronx, beating Toronto, all these other teams. I like the Mariners in 5 or the Astros in 4. The Mariners are definitely going to get a game or potentially 2 if they can get 1 tomorrow with Luis Castillo Thursday with Luis Castillo on the mound, potentially in game 2. And then if they can get maybe split the home series and then potentially get the game 5 win, then I feel like this Mariners team can do it in 5. But I feel like this Astros team just knows us so well, and I have Houston potentially winning in 4.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the rest. I forgot to bring it up. Like, it's going to be interesting to see because this is the first time that they've had a wild card series where teams have been on bye for this long. So it's interesting to see how some teams on the bye react to either being a little bit rusty or taking advantage of the extra rest. I think it's going to be different for some teams. Obviously, there's 4 teams. Braves, Astros, Yankees, Dodgers who had extra time off, and so I think each of them might react differently to rust versus picking up where they left off, basically. So we'll see about that, but I mean, yeah, obviously for them it's going to be tough. The Mariners beat him once, and then lost to him 5 times, so maybe 7th time's the charm, But Logan Gilbert did dominate the Astros during the season with like an ERA like 2.5, roughly 2.7, something like that. So they're definitely gonna need him, to step up big time in his first career postseason start. And then you mentioned Castillo against, I think it will be Framber Valdez, I believe, in game 2. So the Mariners are gonna need Castillo once again to do what he does.
Something to note, I saw this on Twitter, and I think you saw it too. The Astros are dealing with like some kind of sickness or flu. And I feel like I think I saw it. Dusty Baker has not announced the rotation yet after Verlander, so that's also something to note. That you mentioned with this rest could come, like ready to be prepared for the regular for the postseason. But then also like something could happen like for the Astros right now, going a little bit of a flu or a sickness going around that could really affect the rotation and who's able to pitch well and who's able to play well and stuff like that. So. That could be something, but we got to take it all with a grain of salt. But I think it is Valdez versus Castillo in game 2. But yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. I feel like if this Astros team really is ready to play, then they're probably gonna. Game 1 is definitely gonna be the teller. You mentioned Gilbert has done pretty well against this Astros team, and stats show that as well. Then Justin Verlander, obviously, despite I believe one game where he allowed like 6 runs and 10 hits or something. That was like back in May against this Mariners team. for the most part, still 5-1 with a 2 ERA against this team, and he knows this team really well. But I mean, the last time, I remember Julio Rodriguez having a leadoff homer, not a leadoff, but a 2-run shot against Justin Verlander at home. So, you never know what could happen. You never know what could happen.
No, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Astros dominated the regular season, winning, I think it was 7-12, I believe, or
I think it was 12-19. Yeah, 12-19.
Okay, yeah, that sounds more right. But like you also said that the last time they played was a long time ago, before the Mariners got hot, late in the season, and so it's gonna be interesting to see how that has an effect. And then obviously anything can happen in playoff baseball, as we all know. So go M's. That's all I'm gonna say with this series. So now we'll get into the third series, and it's basically the clash of two different play styles between the Guardians and Yankees. Guardians, more small ball. I think they're like they're like one of the they've hit one of the least amount of home runs in the league this season, versus the Yankees, who are basically at the top in that category. Guardians, like the Mariners, have really good pitching in the starting rotation, bullpen. Yankees, obviously, the highlights Aaron Judge and his season that he had. Arlis Chapman was left off the roster because he missed a private workout. I'd like to believe if he was playing well, he could have missed as many workouts as he wanted to, and he still would have been on the roster. So I think that might have had something to do with it potentially. Yankees, obviously, again, chasing title number 28 this time around. The Guardians, you mentioned it earlier, they're coming off that crazy 15-inning game that won them, that clinched in the wild card series over Tampa Bay. Both were pitching duels. It was, I think, 2-1 in game one, and then 1-0 in game two. So that's 24 innings of a combined 4-run score. It's pretty crazy. Do you think that they have what it takes to slow down the Yankees, or what's your take here?
Yeah, I feel like this is the battle of which is going to give more, either the Cleveland Guardians pitching or the Yankees offense. Obviously, the Guardians, you mentioned, one of the best rotations in this postseason, and it showed in that series against the Tampa Bay Rays. With with the first game, I believe it was Bieber versus McClanahan, and that was a 2-1 game. And then the next game was McKenzie versus Glasnow, and that was 0-0 all the way until the bottom of the 15th inning. So it just shows you. But then again, both teams, I believe they were 28th and 29th in the major leagues with home runs. So definitely, you mentioned, not really offensively, strong. They like to play the small ball, just singles, getting to second, stealing second, and then moving on from there. I feel like with this series, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Yankees pitching really does in order to respond to the Guardians pitching, because I feel like the Guardians right now, definitely have the better advantage on the mound. But one of the bigger questions is, which Garrett Cole are we going to get in this postseason? Because the Garrett Cole that we've been getting for the past couple of years has lost so many games for this Yankees team, and it really matters. And now here we are, once again, ALDS, Guardians, Yankees. I feel like this Yankees team should be winning, but I don't know why. I just really like what the Guardians are doing right now in terms of playing small ball, pitching dominantly. Bullpen is still very good as well. And then yes, they play small ball, but that's what they like to do. I like the Guardians, and I like the Guardians in 5 or 4 in this matchup. I really like what the Guardians are doing, and this is all depending on how we see Game 1 today. I feel like if the Yankees just cannot hit today, just invisible offense today, because I believe the starting matchup is Cole. Is it Cole versus?
Yeah, Cal Quantrill.
That's right. It's Cal Quantrill. Yeah, Quantrill versus Cole. And Quantrill, he is very, very dominant, but he's usually dominant at home, and that's the thing. But he's still a very dominant pitcher for this Guardians team, and I feel like it just depends on what Garrett Cole we're really going to get today. So I feel like Game 1 will really tell who's going to be the more dominant team. I like the upset here. I really like the Guardians in 4 or 5. I just feel like this Yankees team is just going to fizzle out, and all the offense is going to be there for maybe like the first couple of games, but then once that bullpen comes in, because I think they've announced the full starting rotation for both games. If I'm not for pretty much all three, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they have. They have Quantrill today, and then it's Bieber versus Nestor Cortez tomorrow. And Bieber, he's done well against this Yankees team in the past. And then, Sebi versus McKenzie. And McKenzie looks really good as of right now. So I feel like if the Yankees don't take 2 out of 3 against those, then series is over. And I feel like the Guardians could win 4 or 5 games in here. But I will say that Aaron Judge is definitely going to be one of the bigger factors. We'll see how this Guardians team pitches to him, considering they kind of have to pitch to him because it's the postseason. And if you're not pitching to Aaron Judge now, then it's just gonna be dangerous in the long run. So I like the upset here. I know a lot of my Yankee fan friends are gonna be upset about me, but I really like the pitching of this Guardians team. I have the Guardians winning in 4 or 5.
No, yeah, that's a good point. This is basically, you figure, a must-win game for the Yankees with Bieber, McKenzie coming up in the next 2 games. Just a quick note, one of the Astros beat reporters confirmed it's Valdez game 1, McCullers game 3, so pretty much as expected in that regard. But back to the series, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a must-win. Well, one crazy stat is that Cal Quantrill has not lost a game at home since 2019, so you mentioned that, but obviously this is in Yankee Stadium, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, they're going to need Garrett Cole to step up here. And then, maybe they could steal one against Wannabe or McKenzie. I mean, obviously those 2 are dominant, but the Yankees have the offense to crush anyone any given night. So I'm going Yankees in 5 here, but I do expect it to be a tight series. And I think the Guardians do definitely have a really good shot here. So now we'll get into the final series of this round coming up. Another fun divisional matchup between the Dodgers and Padres. Padres took down the 101 win Mets in 3 games in that wild card series off dominant games from Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. Obviously, it's a fun rivalry. At first, it seemed like the Padres might not have made the playoffs at all at one point, in the season. Maybe like a month before the season ended, but they were able to sneak in and take down the Mets. And now they get the team that they've looked up to in the division for a long time now. They get a chance to kind of get their, quote unquote revenge here, if you want to call it that. It should be a fun one, Korea. What were your thoughts on, the wild card and then this series?
Look, I'm not going to say I had Padres in 3, but I had Padres in 3 for a reason. I feel like the Padres kind of played that perfectly because obviously game 1, it was definitely Scherzer versus Darvish, and Darvish shoved, and he was going to continue to shove because this is his redemption season, so he's having a great season. And then they didn't expect much from Blake Snell in game 2, and that's where I kind of was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely going to game 3 because they could have easily started Musgrove in game 2 and have Musgrove versus DeGrom, but they wanted to force game 3. So that's very strategic playing from Bob Melvin and that Padres staff. And, to get game 3, Bassett versus Musgrove, I already knew the Mets were doing just because of how much offense they showed in game 2 and then disappeared in game 3. But now we have the Padres and Dodgers. And I feel like this is a rivalry because the Dodgers pretty much own the Padres and have owned the division for a very long time. Look, there's nothing wrong with this Padres-Dodgers matchup. I feel like this is what a lot of people are going to be seeing a lot more of, this Padres-Dodgers rivalry. And the Padres, yes, they've definitely invested in the right pieces, getting Soto, Bell, Musgrove's having a great season, potential Cy Young season, in my opinion. The bullpen Hader, dominant. They got Drury as well, who kind of just came out of nowhere for the Reds before he got traded to the Padres. And I feel like this Padres team, is good, but it's just not good enough to beat the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I feel like if they don't win the World Series, it's a failure for them because of how much they have invested in guys like Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, Will Smith, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger. I mean, the names go on and on. I mean, Julio Urias is a NL Cy Young candidate. He gets the pitch. He starts on the mound today. They still have Clayton Kershaw. They lost Walker Buehler, and they're still this good. Like, that is what the problem. That's why I'm scared of this Dodgers team. The Dodgers team, they are still really good without one of their Cy Young pitchers. One of. That's why I say one of. I don't think the Padres know what they're really getting themselves into. I have the Dodgers in 4. It's gonna be ugly. The Dodgers have been well rested. They've been coasting since August. Okay, this Dodgers team, hell, they've been coasting since the fucking All-Star break. Okay, let's be real here. This Dodgers team has been coasting since July. They've won division. They're the best team in baseball. I feel like if the Dodgers do not make it past, no, I feel like if the Dodgers just don't win the World Series, it's a failure of the season because of what they have done to prepare themselves for this moment. They got Freddie Freeman, who was on the Braves, and I would love to see a Braves-Dodgers NLCS, please. just for that matchup. Freddie Freeman going back to Atlanta, that would be huge. But anyways, I feel like the Dodgers win in 4. It's going to be ugly. The Padres just are good, but if the Padres want to have a chance, Juan Soto's going to have to play like he was back in 2019, just with the Nationals, just pretty much hitting the ball everywhere. But I feel like the Dodgers team is just too powerful. I have the Dodgers winning in 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Padres have the pitching, to take 1, and I could see it going to 5, back to LA. But yeah, I think I'll go 4 as well. I think, like you said, they're too dominant on both sides. I think the Padres are great on both sides as well. But Dodgers are just another, step forward above. I mean, arguably the entire league, not just the Padres. So, I think the Padres will make it tight, and I think most games will be tight. At least that's what I want to see. But yeah, the Dodgers should prevail in the end. So I think that will do it for our coverage of the MLB playoffs in this round. All 4 game 1s are today on Tuesday. And then the schedule the rest of the way is weird. Like there's 2 games tomorrow on Wednesday. And then the Mariners and Astros don't play games till Thursday. So the schedule's all weird. But that all begins today. And then now we'll close with some NFL talk. We're now 5 weeks into the season. So we're a little bit less than a third into the regular season. So just kind of going over our top kind of takeaways so far that we've seen this season. And kind of the first one I wanted to bring up is just kind of how wide open it seems like the league is really. Obviously the Eagles are 5-0, and there's, a few teams that are 4-1, but the Eagles have been great, but it doesn't seem like they're the clear, at least to me, top team in the league. And there's a lot of teams, 3-2, 2-3. The entire, NFC West is, 3-2, 2-3. There's just a lot of kind of evenness. I mean, even the AFC West that most thought was by far the best division of the league, clearly that's not the case. So it's obviously every year there's unpredictability in terms of, what we expect for what happens, but it seems even more so this year than recent years where there's even the worst teams in the league. There's no one clear worst team in the league. I don't think. I mean, obviously there's bad teams and all, but it seems like even the worst teams have kind of taken a step forward than compared to the worst teams maybe 5-6 years ago. Corey, what's kind of your take on that, and then what's kind of one takeaway that you've had so far?
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like this year is definitely a lot of mid teams, definitely, but it's only been 5 weeks. But a lot of teams that have not really taken that next step, like you mentioned, the AFC West. You have the Chiefs, obviously dominant 4-1. I mean, a lot of people were kind of down on them this year. You have the Chargers 3-2. They've struggled a little bit this year. Denver, obviously, with their offensive struggles, and then the Raiders, we saw it last night, just blowing the lead, and then now they potentially lose Devontae Adams for a little while with a potential suspension after shoving that Chiefs camera worker. So just a lot of different ideology. I mean, one of the biggest surprises for me is just the whole NFC East division, because you have the top 3 teams at 5-0 and 4-1. Literally, if you look at the NFC East right now, Dallas and New York would be in first place in the NFC North, and the NFC South and the NFC West. That is crazy to me. That just shows you that this NFL season is super, super unpredictable, as you mentioned it. Obviously, no one had the Giants beating the Packers, let alone in London, obviously getting the win carried by Saquon on the offensive side of the ball. But I feel like this season is just a lot of unpredictability. You mentioned just a lot of teams that have really surprised a lot this year. You mentioned AFC North. I mean, it's still really competitive, but Baltimore has the early edge right now at 3-2. And Baltimore is kind of crazy. They'd be 5-0 if it wasn't for 14 seconds in 2 games that they lost to, which is still pretty crazy to actually think that Baltimore is that good. They just choked the game away at the last second. So this year, I feel like it's a lot of unpredictability, as you said. You look at the NFC West, and that division's usually been very dominant for like the past maybe 5-6 years, but now it's looking like it's a little bit of a struggle bus, especially with the defending champion Los Angeles Rams. I mean, last week, my goodness, they looked horrible. Against the Cowboys, they couldn't find any offense, and I feel like their offensive line is definitely going to be a huge problem facing against, these good defensive fronts like the Cowboys, who have pretty much the most sacks in football, or a Bucs team that can get to the quarterback, or a Packers team that can get to the quarterback, or like the Eagles who can get to the quarterback now. And I feel like that's definitely going to be evident for the Rams team. Definitely not something to be like, just shoved to the side. Definitely something to be really concerned about if you're a Rams fan. Definitely just pass protection has been one of their bigger struggles this year. As a Seahawks fan, I love what Geno Smith is doing right now. Obviously, we had no expectations for what he has this season, and he's just unleashed as one of the best quarterbacks in football right now. Passing wise, I think he has one of the best passer ratings in football, if not the best. It's just really, really great to see. But the defense for the Seahawks is absolutely abysmal right now, other than Tariq Woolen, who obviously is a star on that defensive in that secondary. But other than that, not really many stars. One more thing I want to talk about, the Carolina Panthers. I don't know where you go from here. They obviously just fired Matt Rule and their DC back yesterday. Now, the Carolina Panthers are interesting because they just lost Baker Mayfield, too, for a little while. And now they have to probably go with P.J. Walker, obviously the XFL guy. And where does Carolina go from here? Obviously, I've heard I think there were rumors, but I think they were shut down of the Bills trying to trade for Christian McCaffrey. And could you imagine Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey? And that's a fantasy football team. That's a fantasy football team. That is a 4-team fantasy football league. My goodness. But it's just, I don't know what the Panthers do now. They obviously, Christian McCaffrey, he's injury prone, but it's kind of just him on this offense now when you really think about it. And I feel like they are one of the worst teams in football, just on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they can't get it done. And Jimmy G exposed them on defense. And then offensively, they have struggled so much offensively. I feel like the 1-4s, when you look at all the 1-4s, Carolina, Detroit, Washington, the Commanders, Las Vegas, Houston's 1-3-1, but still Pittsburgh. I feel like when you look at all those teams, you got to say Carolina is one of the worst teams in that group. Yes, the Steelers just got beat badly by the Bills, but the Bills are the best team in football right now. And the Bills, Josh Allen is an MVP, right? He's playing an MVP, and that defense is for real. And so my early takeaways, Rams definitely on that Super Bowl slump right now. They're struggling to make a playoff spot right now if they can fix whatever's going on with their offensive line. I feel like the NFC East is one of the best divisions of football right now. Cowboys have one of the best defenses. Saquon's back. Eagles are the only undefeated team. Definitely good. Carson Wentz is like 4th in passing right now or something like that. I heard that stat last night. That's crazy to me. The AFC West, obviously, it's early, but I feel like it's still going to be a little bit of a dogfight. We saw last night. It's pretty evident last night. We saw it because the Raiders wanted that, but the Chiefs just wanted it a little more. And I feel like that's what we're going to get in that division. And then you look at, how about the Jets, huh? How about the Jets? They're 3-2. They've beaten back-to-back teams against a very good Miami team. Obviously, no Tua, and they lost Teddy Bridgewater for a little bit. So I had to go with Skylar Thompson, the 7th-round quarterback from Kansas State. But still, they beat the Steelers 2 on the road, too, and that's a big win. I feel like if the Jets want to gain a lot of respect, they gotta win this week, and they have a big matchup. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I believe that's in Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken, or that could be. Yeah, I think it's in Green Bay. So if they want to do it, get that road win, and then the Jets have gained my because they'll be a 4-2 team. They will have beaten teams like the Browns, not the Patriots, excuse me, the Browns, the Steelers, and the Packers, who are all like teams that have been very good or are in consideration to be good. I feel like that's like excuse me, that is your golden opportunity right there. And I feel like if the Jets want to gain respect, then do it and go win on the road. But you mentioned definitely a lot of surprises this year, but we're only in like the early third of the season. We're heading into week 6. We still got 12 weeks to go. And, we've seen a lot of injuries, especially like what happened with the Niners this past week. A lot of players going down to IR early, but definitely a very wonky season to say the least so far heading into week 6.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely brought up some good points. I think you kind of have to give credit to Geno Smith. I mean, I think if the Seahawks even had a league average defense, I think he'd be in the early MVP conversation. I mean, he's like top 5 and like you said, passer rating, completion percentage, just his efficiency. And then this past week, and on the road against the Saints, I think it was even more impressive. He had the 2 touchdowns to Tyler Lockett that looked like prime Russell Wilson, and not current Russell Wilson, but prime Russell Wilson. With the Seahawks. So we'll see if he can keep that up. Moving forward, and then obviously the NFC East right now is the best division. Record wise, the Giants. I mean. No receivers. Obviously, Barkley's been great, but I think that really shows you how much coaching matters because, Daboll's done a really good job. But I don't know what happened to the Packers in London this past week. I mean, it's like stopped running the ball, late in the second half. And, they finally started to do it late in the fourth quarter, but by then it was a little bit too late. But credit to the Giants defense. I mean, they stepped up when it mattered most. I think, they shut out the Packers the entire second half in that game. So we'll see if they can keep that up. And then we have a big Sunday night game coming up between the Eagles and Cowboys. So that would be a big one for that division and for the whole NFL. But also like you said, it's still early enough where things can even out, even like 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. So we'll continue to monitor, all these takeaways as the season progresses. I think that will do it for this episode, unless there's something else that you wanted to talk about.
No, pretty much. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to be going over week 6 a little early because you're going to the ALDS game, and I'm super jealous. But so potentially on game 4. But so I know you're traveling, but Pete, tomorrow we're going to be doing a breakdown of what's happening this coming week for week 6. And we'll keep in touch with the ALDS. We'll see what's going on with potentially college football as well. But just keep watching us. Thank you guys for watching us. We love all the love that you guys give us. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, send it to a friend, send it to family, send it to your cousin, send it to your grandpa, send it to whoever. We're just 2 guys who love sports and just love talking about it. But I think this is going to wrap up another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Korea. We will see you guys tomorrow for our week 6 breakdown of the NFL.